comedian, That Metal Show, host, co-host, whatever. You're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
Welcome back, Totally Driven Radio. It's Thursday night, Throwback Thursday. My name's Bay Ragney, and I'm flying solo tonight. So stay tuned. We got some great interviews coming up, and don't forget the Flyers are on. So let's still 1-1 in the second period. And it's funny too, because in that commercial break we have one of our sponsors and our good friend Realism, who's been a guest on the show a few times. And his new single, X It. I just love that song. And now when I hear that commercial, I'm getting so into it, and then it starts to kick in, and then the plug gets pulled. And I'm just left hanging. And I hate that. So, but anyway, phone lines are open, 718-508-9883. And we got Donny Hillier coming up from Trauma in a few minutes. It's going to be pretty cool to talk to him. The big question I really want to ask is, where you been for 30 years? Like, what's been going on? And I guess this is him now. So let's get to it.
Hi, Bay.
This is
Donny Hillier from Trauma.
How are you? Donny, how you
doing? Great. How
are
you today?
Good, man.
Really good.
So
how are things in New York?
Actually, I'm in Philly.
Oh, okay.
I'm in Philly, but yeah, we have a New York number. Yeah, we have a New York number, but I am in Philly.
My mistake. Shoot me.
How about that? No, we don't want to do that to you. So I don't know if you heard me just talking, but I mean, the big question I really got to ask, which I was going to wait till later in the interview, but I guess it's really an important question is, what have you been doing for 30 years?
Well, we've all been busy with other bands. Trauma. After the Scratch and Scream album came out, we supported that album and played a lot, mostly in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area, for about another year and a half. And our drummer, Chris Gustafson, who is in the new lineup, moved to L.A. His wife was going to school there, and he moved to L.A. with the intention of coming home for gigs and rehearsals and all that. And that went on for a little while. But it got difficult. He started, doing some studio work there, and he started playing with a band called St. Elmo's Fire, who did 4 albums and 4 U.S. tours. And he got known around the L.A. area. I'm just talking about Chris now. He was recruited to go to Switzerland, and he played in a band called Threat with Mark Kohler from Crocus. And and so that kept him busy for a few years. And Chris came back, ended up playing with Frank Hannon in a band called Moondog Maine, Frank Hannon of Tesla. And like that, he was an in-demand drummer. Our intention was to, after we realized, a year or so after the band just kind of blew to the different corners of California, we said, maybe that was a mistake. We should probably get back together again. But everybody was involved in other bands, and you can imagine getting that lineup of 5 people back all at one time became difficult. And so 30 years went pretty quickly, believe it or not. I was in a number of bands,
scary, right?
And yeah. And Chris and I, would talk periodically, and I'm going to say about once a year. We would say, we should really put this back together again, but the timing just wasn't right. And so the other 3 members of the Scratch and Scream lineup got very involved in other things in their lives and other priorities. So then it became a matter of, well, who would be in this lineup?
Right.
So about So what happened about 2 years ago, Bay, is that we were approached by a couple of different record labels, coincidentally, about re-releasing Scratch and Scream, because it's kind of a to quote what I've read in magazines, it's a hard to obtain heavy metal collector's item. Sure. And so a couple of labels independently of each other had the idea of re-releasing it, approached us with it. We in turn told Mike Varney of Shrapnel Records, who was the label we were with back in the day, about that, and Mike's response was, hell no. No, Scratch and Scream will only be re-released by Shrapnel. And then in conversation with Mike, Mike thought it would be a really good idea. Why don't you guys put that band back together again, support the album, and then if you're having fun, which we are, continue into the future. So that's what happened about. Yeah. So, and it took a little additional time to figure out our old problem, who would be in that lineup, because other members had moved to different parts of California, even Nevada, and had other priorities in their life. Sure.
Now, how about yourself? I mean, over all that time, were you still involved in music at all, or?
Well, I wasn't for a while. I kind of lost track of it, but I started a family. The typical thing that happens. Started a family and got sidetracked. I was always writing songs, jamming with friends, that kind of thing. Saying, I got to get back in a band. I get very restless and itchy, and so I was just in a succession of bands. And did some recording projects, didn't really get off the ground. Prior to putting the Trauma lineup back together, I did 3 albums with a band called Black Sunday Dream, also from the San Francisco Bay Area. And so that kept me pretty occupied. A lot of studio sessions, writing sessions, rehearsals, some live gigs. And prior to that, like I said, some casuals, recording, writing bands that never really went that far, that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, like with all that time that went by, you had to have been saying to yourself, especially as bands were getting, the metal scene grew and exploded. Then it went away for a while, and it's pretty much back again. Like, you had to be saying to yourself, like, I was a vital part of like the burst of that scene of the '80s. Like, I deserve to be involved in this. You know what I mean? Like, did you have any regrets or just missing it in general?
Absolutely, yeah. Anytime I'm not in a band, I miss it. I get restless, and so I don't know that I deserve anything, because you got to just keep doing what you do because you love it. That's always going to be the bottom line, and so you have to really fight for your last performance, your last recording is your so. Yeah, it's like an athlete almost. You don't deserve anything. You have to go prove that you're worth listening to. But yeah, it's a little crazy making to be out of it. And I think a large part of it was Trauma was a really, really personal band for me, and it was really exciting, being part of the early heavy metal scene, thrash metal Bay Area, and my bandmates were really important to me. So I couldn't just put that band back together with just anybody. And Chris Gustafson, our drummer, had so much success himself that, of course, that delayed anything happening. And timing is everything, as they say. But yeah, quite crazy making. I mean, I'm thrilled to have this band back together, and so that this was always the band that I wanted to be in again.
Right. Yeah, that's I know your pain because I played the band here in the Philly area for like 15 years, and we went through like member changes and stuff like that, and there was times like we would break up for just like a year or two, and then we would get back together, but it was like the same thing, like who are we going to put in these spots and who are going to do this, but all along it was just like missing it and wanting to do it, and I would try to do other things, but bottom line was my heart was with that original band that I had for so many years.
I totally understand that. Yeah, I mean that's a part of you. It's part of your soul, and yeah, definitely it becomes very important. And that's an emotional thing. I mean, you could be a cold, hard business person and say, "Oh, I just need to be in a band and go ahead," but it doesn't always feel right, So.
Right.
Chris is really important to me. We go way back, and I love the way he plays drums, and he's a very powerful drummer, and he kicks everybody's ass, and it's just it's great to have that power behind you.
Nice. Now, when you guys first started, were you guys like all like friends growing up, or how did you all get together?
No, we weren't. Well, some of the other guys were, but I was kind of a newcomer, and I was recruited by one of the founding members, and they hadn't had much of a head start on me. They were still, pretty much a garage band, and the two of the members saw me singing in a club with a band and talked to me after the gig and started talking about their band, and I could tell that they were really proud of what their sound, even though they weren't a complete band at the time. And so we agreed that they would get the rest of the members of the band come meet me. And so a few days later, the other four members of Trauma came walking into my apartment in Oakland one by one, and so that's how I met most of them. And then a few days later, we jammed, and I guess they taught me a few of their songs on the spot, and it was one of those things where you just kind of decide on the spot. There's no little conferences on the side or we'll get back to you kind of thing. We said, yeah, let's do this, and so that was really my first experience with a real hard rock band, heavy metal band. I'd done a lot of hard rock kind of stuff. I don't know what you'd call AC/DC. They're I guess you could call them metal, but I had done some AC/DC, that kind of thing, more, and been in some original bands, but those guys, the rest of them were friends. They were more guys that had hung out and partied together, and I was kind of the new guy for a little while.
Gotcha. Now, as a matter of fact, this was what, like around 1980?
Yes, 80, 81. I came into the picture about 81.
Okay, because the music scene. There was, the quote-unquote metal, but there really wasn't burst yet of true metal. And what did you think? Trauma's like, it's like that early beginnings of Metallica that people hear. What did you think when you first heard it? Because, basically it's almost like a new style of music that's being created.
Yeah, well, it was. I loved it. That was definitely for me, and so because I said my background was hard rock, but it was hard rock. If those drums aren't pounding and you got screaming guitar and that's what really gets my blood going. It's just got to have raw power, and so I immediately loved the sound that these guys had, and so started really paying attention to being in the metal world, and it was early, and Trauma's sound changed in that time. On the Scratch and Scream re-release, there are 3 bonus tracks of the early band, and one of the songs is kind of jamish, almost. We're going off, and then there's like a power ballad, Woman Be Gone, and then there's Such a Shame, which is the first song that we ever really recorded. and that song ended up being on Metal Massacre 2, Metal Blade Records Metal Massacre 2. But yeah, so our sound was changing too. By the time we did the Scratch and Scream album, it was more metal, but it did have kind of a metamorphosis itself.
Right. And you mentioned the Metal Blade Records Metal Massacre 2. Now those things, I remember, like, I mean, I was almost a teenager. I was about 12, 13 years old at the time. Like, those things, when they started coming out, when Metal Blade Records started putting them out, it's like us kids were like chomping at the bit for those things. So when a band like, I mean, like you guys and Metallica was on them, it was like, you know, the next big thing. Like, you guys had been like so excited to be like chosen to be part of that.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. We you know, like I said, I mean, our first time, I think it was certainly mine, and if not everybody's first time in a real recording studio when we recorded Such a Shame, and then for it to be included on that soon after that, yeah, definitely vinyl. You know, it's you know, we actually did something that you know is going to be produced and people are going to hear it. So that was very cool. And then, you know, somewhere in between then we met Mike Varney of Shrapnel, and I don't know if you're very familiar with Shrapnel, but Mike Varney is you know a guitar legend in Northern California. In fact, you know, and people know him around the world. He wrote a column for Guitar Player magazine for years. I think for years. I know it was for some time, and you know, Mike is credited with bringing in Dave Malmsteen to the U.S. and has done a lot of work with Michael Schenker and all these guitar gods. So and to, you know, be recording an album for him was also quite a thrill.
Yeah, I mean, that had to be. I would have been like blown away, really. And you guys, I mean, not for nothing, you guys were kids at the time.
Yeah.
So I mean,
yeah, and it's what you dream, you know, it's what you dream of, and so and you know, Mike was already, yeah, and what I realize now is really those were the early days of Shrapnel Records, but he was already, you know, such a known person around. It's like, you know, that was lent us some legitimacy, you know, to be recording for him. So very cool days. Yeah.
Now, how was the scene in general at that time in the Bay Area? I mean, there was you guys, and I guess it was Metallica had their thing going too at the time, and
yeah, there was Exodus, Laz Rocket. Do you know Laz Rocket?
Oh yeah. Oh right, yeah. Wow.
Vicious Rumors, Rumors. Those were the bands that I think of in this area at that time. You know, the bands of renown, and we were all playing clubs like the Stone on Broadway in San Francisco, downtown San Francisco. You know, that's like a entertainment district. There's all these, you know, strip clubs and you know, all that kind of stuff. It's really seedy, and it was really cool. A lot of people hanging out on the streets, you know, sailors, all of that. Really good, really very good times. So there was that venue. There was the Keystone Berkeley, owned by the same group of people that owned the Stone, and that was, I believe, a converted supermarket in downtown Berkeley. And you probably know what Berkeley's vibe is like. Then there was the Keystone Palo Alto. So, and then there was Bill Graham had a club. And it's escaping me at the moment what his name. Wolfgang's. That was his middle name, and he had a club in downtown San Francisco. And so those bands that I mentioned, we were all playing those venues pretty often. It wasn't, you know, Trauma would be playing one of those venues at least once a month, if not twice a month, and those were really showcase places. I mean, the touring bands, national touring bands were coming through playing those venues. You know, like we were playing with people like Saxon, Girl School, if you know who they are.
Sure.
I think and we played, you know, with Slayer, Motley Crue, Steppenwolf,
Wow.
Bands like that. Pat Travers was coming through a lot, and so we were playing with those kind of bands. And I'm going to say that those other bands I mentioned on the scene were doing the same thing, opening for those kind of acts.
Cool. Now, I guess things were going like pretty good for you guys, and then Cliff left to go to Metallica.
He did, right? Yeah. Things were going well. We, had played the show. We'd gone down to L.A. several times. Played the Whiskey a Go-Go, the Troubadour, places like that. So yeah, I mean everything was looking really rosy. Cliff leaving the band was definitely a kick in the stomach. And he really it took him about a year to make that decision, and as he told us, when he broke the news, it was at a rehearsal, and it was pretty emotional, and it was hard on him because he did go back with the different members of the band. He and I had become close, and so it took him a long time to make that decision, and we were very, very sorry to see him go. I guess in the long run the important thing is that we remained good friends, and in fact Mike Overton, one of the guitarists, and I were at Cliff's first ever gig playing with Metallica. In fact, I saw Cliff on numerous occasions with Metallica, and we would see each other when he was home from tours, and go out for drinks occasionally, and that kind of thing. So
right.
So it was, we continued a friendship, in other words, and we were happy for his success, and very proud of Cliff. Cliff was a really good person, a lot of fun to be around. He could be quiet, but he also had a wicked sense of humor, a wry sense of humor, and kind of a twitch in the corner of his mouth, and very smart guy, and just didn't wish anybody any ill. Was all about his music and loving life, and just a really good person, quality person.
That's cool though, because I mean, you figure, and I'm sure you guys have gone. I'm sure anybody out there listening, and I'm sure anybody has gone through this, where a situation like that, especially when you're younger, where a band member who is also where you put emotion first at times, and you're thinking this is your friend before you're thinking it's a bandmate, and he leaves like that to go to join another band, and it's like a kick to the stomach. And then you might turn around, it might be, hard feelings, or, screw this guy and this and that. But it sounds like it was not like that at all, where it was, everything still remained very friendly, and everybody was still very cool with each other.
Oh yeah, no question. And he was interested in us. And so, like I said, we would talk. There was at one point, actually before Cliff's last tour with Metallica, we were rehearsing side by side. Our Trauma was in the next room over, was Metallica, and so we would see him. They were there just for a short time, getting ready for that last tour, and I'll never forget, one particular night going to a bar, Mike Overton, Cliff and me, and just talking, and him telling us what it was like on the road with Metallica and what were we up to, and all of that kind of thing. So no, there was a lot of affection there.
What did you think of the music they started putting out as the years went on, when they start putting out albums like Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets? I mean, just, insanely classic albums to this day.
Well, it's good music. I mean, Metallica deserves the success they've had. I like Metallica. I'm a fan. So what did I think? I like it. I mean, some of their songs are, just, For Whom the Bell Tolls, Fade to Black,
Sure.
Enter Sandman. I mean, who doesn't like that?
Right.
The Unforgiven. I love the Unforgiven. I mean, it's just wherever I roam, this is good stuff.
Yeah.
It's I mean, it goes without saying.
Sure. And how about when Cliff passed away? I mean, it must have been devastating for you and the rest of the band.
Yeah, it was pretty tough. That was really a shock. I mean, that was a shock to everybody, but to know him, anybody who knew him, an even bigger shock. Again, Mike and I went to his funeral together, and just really sad. Really sad. His family is a great bunch of people, and can you imagine, what that was like for them? They were just, his mom, his dad, his sister, they were just really proud of Cliff, and a very close family, and a lot of love, and one reason why Cliff could be such a success musically was his family was so behind him on that. They just supported him 100%, and just an awful thing for that family to go through, for all of his fans, but especially family and friends. Tough, right. Very tough time.
I remember the instant I found out. I was a freshman in high school, and this is way before the internet and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you didn't have the instant news, and it was actually the day after. And the high school I went to was the same high school that Jeff LaBar, the band Cinderella, went to, and a lot of people in his immediate neighborhood were all in the school and were all close. And he had sent word. They might have even been on tour or something at the time. He had sent word, that what had happened to Cliff, and his family had told the kids in the neighborhood. And then they came to school the next day and told us. It was literally first period in science class, and I just remember sitting there like completely devastated, like I couldn't believe the story.
Yeah. See, he felt it. I mean, it's just, I mean, Cliff had become, an iconic bass player, totally cool guy that, and people knew that, and just, a large personality, and it's just, it's a loss.
Yeah. Now, you said his family was very supportive of him. How about your family with you?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, my family didn't really didn't understand heavy metal, but they weren't necessarily fans of the genre, but yeah, they were very, very supportive of me, and I'd already been doing a lot of gigging with, like I said, with hard rock bands and all of that. I think they were surprised that I went in that direction. I have musical people in my family, but I mean this, that lifestyle, hard rock, heavy metal was just a whole different new thing. But
right.
No, they're very, very supportive and very cool.
See, I get amazed when I hear things like that, because the more I talk to people in the business when I'm doing these interviews, and they'll mention it or the question will come up, and a lot it sounds like, and it's not all the time, but a lot of the times when you have that support at home, it really helps people like yourself get over almost to that other side, or make that, you know what I mean? Where I mean, growing up, I didn't have that support at all. Like I was constantly just told. I was told, like, you're being a friggin' idiot. Give it up. Stop. It's 1,000,000 to 1 chance. Stop. And I hear now, like, from you, and actually last week, band out of New York, and there are a bunch of kids. They're literally, it's funny, it's the second time we had them on. First time we had them on, they were 11 to 13. Now they're 12 to 14. But these kids are phenomenal, and they're playing, like, not arena. Actually, I saw them play in arena last year at an arena football game, like at halftime. And they're playing, but they're playing in front of thousands of people. at these shows. They're getting set up with these great gigs, and their music is great. I mean, you wouldn't know that they're like not even teenagers. It's amazing, and
That's cool.
The families are so behind them and so supportive. It's just amazing, and it blows me away when I see a parent so supportive like that.
Yeah, that's nice. It's too bad you didn't have it. I mean, but yeah, I mean, you can go the other way too. You can be so angst out and angst ridden and angry that's good for your music too. But you know, I mean, there's enough things in the world that really suck to keep you angry. So
sure,
you know, but so it's good. It's good to have the family support. But you know, I mean, talk about family support. Chris is second generation drummer, and his dad was a well-known. He's deceased now, but his dad was a very well-known drummer. You know that song by? Do you know who Bobby Darin is?
Of course.
Old time singer. Okay, so
I think Bobby Darin's
that
from
song.
Philly, actually.
I think you're right. Now that you mention it, but anyway, that's his classic song "Under the Sea." That's Chris's dad drumming on that. Like Chris's dad was playing with like Bobby Darin, Harry James, Billie Holiday,
wow.
Woody
Nice.
Herman. I mean, he played with all these legendary people, and that's the world Chris grew up in. Some of these people, literally in his house visiting with his dad. And so, his dad had lived in New York City for a while and toured with these in the big band era. So, music wasn't going to be a problem in that household, you can believe,
Right. So, okay, so then when Cliff left and you guys continued on, was it a lot different? Like, was it harder to keep going, and then you had member changes, and I guess it just wasn't the same?
It wasn't the same. When he left, around the time he left, is when Chris actually came into the band, because the band had originally another drummer that they went back a ways with. It wasn't hard. It was, like I said, as you can imagine, it was a little bit hard to say goodbye to Cliff. But
sure.
we did find a bass player who's very good. His name is Lucas Advincula, and that's him playing bass on the Scratch and Scream album. And Luke was good, and so kind of a quiet guy, but very, very competent. So we had a good bass player, and Chris was, like I said, such a powerful drummer that was really a nice energy boost, and he's a real lovable guy. And so no, at that point it wasn't difficult. It was still all exciting and all really, really cool and satisfying, and up to the time that we recorded the album, and we're still doing good gigs, and even after the album, I'd say really the reason why the members of the band kind of went their own way was what you're referring to. We started having a revolving door of bass players and drummers after Chris left.
Okay.
And it never quite felt the same, and when Chris left, Luke also for a while after that, Luke kind of disappeared. He went kind of reclusive, and we really didn't know where he was. I mean, he wasn't answering his phone. He wasn't answering his door, and so it got a little weird. And then trying to replace those two guys at one time got kind of difficult, and so that was the beginning of the end of that.
Gotcha. Now the Scratch and Scream album, it is re-released. It is out now. It's available.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it was re-released in late October, and if any of your listeners are interested, I wanted to caution you about something, because if you Google Trauma Scratch and Scream, oh my God, there's so many pages that are going to come up on Google. But there have been, and I didn't mention it when we started talking, but there have been so many pirated copies of this album for sale.
I was going to say that. I was wondering if that had happened, because that's happened a lot with a lot of bands from that era, where the stuff wasn't available over the years and people just put it out themselves.
Yeah, they did, and some of those are really poor quality. It's really been a problem for Shrapnel Records and really any record company. But and so the artwork is funky, really washed out graphics, and some of the quality is terrible. And so the key words, if anybody's interested, is Shrapnel Records remastered would be the key words. The remastered by Shrapnel Records, and there's quite a different price range. It's everywhere, Barnes and Noble and Amazon and iTunes and you name it. It's really available anywhere digitally, and so. But yeah, please just watch for remastered, because we wouldn't want you to get some funky quality thing that somebody else profits off of when they really have no right to it.
Sure. Now, you mentioned a key word there, which was going to be one of my questions anyway, iTunes. Now, it's a whole different music business from 30 years ago, and a big part of that is iTunes. What's your feeling of the whole change of, digital media now and MP3s and stuff like that?
Well, the recording industry really slit their own throat when they went to that format, didn't they? And between that and record execs living lavish lifestyles and all of that, they just burn themselves out. So it's fascinating, really. So how I feel about it? Well, in the old days, the record companies, the A&R staffs and all that, they were the gatekeeper. Okay, you had to get past them to, have a recording. And so, that's good and bad. There's pros and cons there. Some of them, were really in tune with what's exciting and new, and some of them were out to lunch, just, promoting some ridiculous bands like they still do today. And so, or solo acts, and so that you're right, Bay. It was just such a different dynamic. I mean, the whole world has changed. With the trickle, with people not buying records like they used to, or CDs, whatever format, not purchasing it. There's less money. There's less trickle down. So that's changed everything. The good news is, you can publish your own music. You can get your own music out there. But the key is, anybody can put their music on iTunes. However, who's going to know it's there? So really, you still have to have the promotion. And you've been talking to Scott Thomas, and he does our promotion out of Guitars Forever out of Texas. Without an entity like that, nobody's even going to know your music is there. So you need a PR person, a promotion person, or it's just going to be mom and dad and your cousins and your friends. And so so there's good and bad news with each, in each scenario. And it is just the way it is. I mean, we're not going back. So that's the world we're all living in now, is you better have, some good promo going for you.
Well, I mean, actually, it's weird because it is kind of going back with, it seems like vinyl's making a slight comeback, and people are, getting on the vinyl kick again, or they're becoming big collectors of vinyl. And actually, I think it's this Saturday is Record Store Day, if I'm not mistaken. So I mean, things like that have kind of brought the interest back to vinyl, which it's actually.
I think that's cool. Yeah.
I do too. I used to back in the day, you'd have the used record stores. And I would go there and clean up and buy so much cool stuff, and I had this incredible collection of vinyl, and it sat for years. And then 10 years ago with the boom of eBay, they were just sitting there. I said, you know what? Let me get rid of some, and I got rid of like a lot of ones I knew I would just never want to know parts of anymore. And now it's like I'm looking back and I'm like kicking myself in the ass. I'm like, I wish I didn't sell that. Like, yeah, but because it is making that comeback and it's bringing my interest back into it again.
Yeah, I hope it does. I personally, you're sharing something that I've heard, but I hadn't put a lot of thought into it because, I like you, I don't have a turntable. I gave my turntable away and all the vinyl and everything, and so, it's just CDs for me or MP3s, and so, but if vinyl makes a substantial comeback, that's good. That's really good for musicians, and it's good to have choice too, different formats. And so, some people say that the vinyl it's a warmer sound, and so there are audiophiles who just swear by it. I mean, that's purist, being a purist to them, and that's very cool. I just haven't personally experienced that or been motivated to go out and buy vinyl or get a turntable again.
Yeah, it's funny too because they were actually on Howard Stern the other morning. They were talking about vinyl, and they were talking about Record Store Day coming up, and they were playing this sound effect of just the needle going against the record, and I had this feeling like, wow, like I haven't heard that in years, and it just sounded so cool.
So are you gonna get a turntable and all that, or do you still have one?
I still have a turntable. I just haven't touched it. It's just been sitting there with my old stereo system. And actually, they sell turntables now that you can USB right into your computer. Yeah.
I've seen them at some of the big stores, and well, you know what? That could be really fun. Going if you still have any brick and mortar record stores. There are a few in the Bay Area here, and there's one close to my house, and I do pop in there occasionally. And I mean, it's big, and you can just it's fun, just flipping through all the CDs. There is vinyl there, they DVDs, all of it, and it is a fun thing. And like if you enjoyed going to a bookstore, it's kind of fun to do that too, instead of just buying everything off of Amazon. And and so I personally enjoy being in a bookstore or being in a record store, and it's just a fun place, and some of the discoveries. So you could definitely spend some happy hours, no doubt, trying to rebuild your vinyl collection. Absolutely. Well, let's do this. Why don't we play the title track from Scratch and Scream? Let's play the song Scratch and Scream for everybody, and everybody can get this. It is finally, thanks to Shrapnel Records, officially re-released, where you can hear the remastered, excellent quality, not that bogus bootleg, pirated stuff. So we got the real stuff here. Here it is, Trauma, Scratch and Scream. And there they are, Trauma, Scratch and Scream. So, Donnie, can you still hit them notes like that? Yeah, I can. Wow. That's pretty awesome, man. So when you guys got back together, for me it's all. I'm sorry, I talked over you, Bay. I was gonna say when you guys got back together, and started rehearsing that first time, was it like, this is right, this is what we should have been doing? Somewhat. It wasn't magical, to be honest. It was kind of rough, and really? And so it took a while to figure out who was going to be in the band, who still really wanted to do it or had the time and the energy to do it. I'd like to say it was a magical moment, but it really wasn't. And so but we're happy with what we've got going now, and so it lives on. Cool. And you guys are actually working on new music for a new album, right? Yeah, actually, we've finished recording the album. It's been mastered,
cool.
and yeah, and so right now we're looking for a home for it. There's a possibility of, well, we're just not sure, who's going to release it. And so now we wrote a lot of new songs and recorded them, and have been doing some shows sporadically. And so now that we want to get this new album out, first real music, and since Scratch and Scream, and kind of just build on the legacy, build on the repertoire, the catalog, and yeah. So I mean, the future's what we're about right now.
Right. Now, here's a question too. For going back in time, I came across. I don't know if it was you guys doing like a videos or it was an actual live show, but you had like a whole stage show going where you had a girl chained up on a cross, you had a girl laying on a table strapped down, and you killed her and then you ripped her top off. I was like, wow, like, is this an actual live show? This had to be a video shoot.
Yeah, that's a video that was done, way back. I mean, Cliff was still in the band. That is a video that, oh my God, I can't even tell you the drama associated with that video. Back in the day, we had a really interesting manager. He was from England, and he was kind of a mover and a shaker, and he did opened a lot of doors for the band, and he got some doors slammed in our face because he was just a character. I mean, we're talking about a chain smoking, whiskey drinking, hard living guy, and so he had the ability to really piss people off, and so that whole thing was his brainstorm. And so the members of the band Trauma, we knew we were going to LA to shoot a video, but we didn't know that there was going to be women chained to the cross and all of that. And I will tell you, the members of the band, including me, were pretty taken aback when we walked onto that set and saw what was going on. There was some real salesmanship going on to get us to do that, and we did, but that's, yeah, and to this day, I mean, I just have to laugh when I think about that, or when somebody brings it up, because, oh my God, I'll just never forget it, That video is actually has kind of taken on a life of its own, because that is known as the Lost Cliff Burton video, because nobody had seen that video for decades, and then it reappeared, I don't know, 5, 6, I don't know, years ago, much to our surprise, with mixed reactions from the members of Trauma. But yeah, it was quite a scene. It was quite a scene. And
well,
so
how about
what I didn't, you know what, I was just told recently by, I guess, I don't even remember who told me, but the women in that video apparently were professional girls from one of the bunny ranches in Nevada, and so I didn't even know that at the time. So
yeah, I mean, you ripped the top off the one, and she didn't seem to mind at all. So.
She actually did have to be tucked into that. From what I understand, she really didn't want to do that, and then our manager and the director and whomever, the crew and all that, they had a little side conversation with her, and honestly, the members of the band didn't care, one way or the other. We, like I said, you got a crew there, and this sound stage and all of that, we felt compelled to do it, but with mixed feelings. And actually, that after that, there was enough hard feelings about that video that our manager was fired. The consensus of the band, that was the final straw, if you will. And like I said, he did a lot of good for us. He got us. He's the one that got us on the Metal Massacre, and he's the one that got us a lot of the gigs. And he was a wheeler dealer, but the band just had grown weary of some of his antics and
Sure.
Some of his ideas.
Very, very interesting. Okay, so where can we get the CD at now? You said on iTunes and Amazon, and how about actual physical copies?
Are you talking about the Scratch and Scream reissue?
Yes.
Yes. CDs themselves, they're in all those outlets: Barnes and Noble, Amazon, iTunes, of course the Shrapnel Records website. It's over in Europe, like Century Media Records has their own record store, and different. Yeah, again, if you did a Google search for Trauma Scratch and Scream, there'd just be pages of it, and different, like I said, different prices, different outlets.
Gotta make sure you put the reissue. Is that what it is?
Yeah, remastered.
Remastered.
That would be the key word. Yeah, Shrapnel Records remastered, and that would be key there.
Now, how about social
like I said, the new album we just haven't gotten a home for it yet. It's just been remastered, so we've been working on that.
Cool.
I'm sorry, Dave, what was your last question?
How about social media? Are you guys on social media? I think you guys are on Facebook.
We do. Our Facebook is Trauma USA, and and we're just getting that stuff off the ground. Our website is Trauma Metal, all one word, traumametal.com, and there's so many medical associations with the word trauma, so that's why we had to tack on Trauma USA and Trauma Metal. Rather, trauma.com is actually an animal rescue organization.
Oh, really? So, yeah, because every time I would try to Google you guys, that's what I was getting. Yeah, like all type of hospital stuff, and I'm like,
Yeah, and so our focus has been, like I said, getting the lineup complete, and then writing the songs for the new album, and so our social media is we're kicking, starting to kick that into gear. Pay attention to that, and but that'll get you started, and
awesome.
Anybody who's interested.
Cool, very cool. Well, Donny, this has been a lot of fun. It's been great finally talking to you.
Yeah,
I'm very excited.
Really enjoyed talking to you too, Bay.
Cool, man. I appreciate that.
We'll make sure to keep in touch. We'll make sure that when we release the new album that you have a copy of that, and
cool.
I really enjoyed talking to you.
Awesome. Hey, before I let you go, too, can I get you to cut a quick ID? This is Donny Hillier of Trauma, and you're listening to Totally Driven Radio.
I'd love to.
Whenever you're ready.
To. Okay. Hey, everyone, this is Donny Hillier from Trauma, and you are listening to Bay on Totally Driven Radio. Horns up, headbangers.
Nice. I like that. Very nice. Thank you. Cool.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for asking, and thank you very much for inviting me to be on your show and playing the Scratch and Scream cut. And this has really been great.
Cool. I appreciate that. All right, Don. Well, thanks again, and we'll keep plugging away for you guys. And you guys are totally driven. Yeah,
we are, and you are, and your listeners are. So everybody, y'all have fun in Philadelphia, and hope to see you face to face sometime soon.
Awesome. Yeah, when you guys come out to Philly, we'll meet up.
Okay, that's a given.
Cool. All right, Donny, have a good night, and
Dave.
thanks again. Yep.
You too. Bye now.
See ya. All right, everybody, there he goes, Donny Hillier of the band Trauma, back together. Check them out, Trauma USA on Facebook. You can go to their official website, traumametal.com, and you can go to iTunes or Amazon, all them fun places, and you get the remastered official reissue from Shrapnel Records of Scratch and Scream. So there you go. All right, everybody, let's take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking with the one, the only John Fred Young of Black Stone Cherry. Be back in a few.